Hello, I'm Joseph Rescigno, and welcome back. In this video, I'd like to speak about embellishing the vocal line. Now, you may say, well, you're a conductor, you don't sing. What do you have to do with embellishing the vocal line? Well, conductors don't sing, at least we're not paid to sing. But we certainly have a lot to do with embellishing the vocal line, or we should. Conductors are the conscience of a performance. In fact, the title for almost a century in Italy was Maestro, Concertatore e Direttore d'Orchestra. Teacher who puts things together and conducts the orchestra. Puts things together. Conductors supervise the music on stage as well as working with the orchestra in the pit. So, when we're talking about operas that when they were written, the audience expected that at certain places the vocal line would be decorated. There would be a certain sense almost of improvisation. The conductor should make sure, number one, that this decoration happens in the right spot in the opera. Number two, it's the right style for the composer. And number three, it is appropriate for the drama or comedy that is happening at the moment. What are the operas that expected decoration? Well, in my book, they go from Mozart through bel canto and into the first half of Verdi's output. That does not mean that the same kind of decoration you would use in Rossini would be appropriate for Mozart or Bellini. Each composer also had a particular kind of style of his decorations and embellishments. But we have an aid to help us in all of this, because many of these composers gave us examples where they themselves decorated the vocal line. And if we use this as a model for places where they left it to the singer, we're already on the right track. Now, Mozart, in his opera Don Giovanni, for the character of Zerlina in her aria Batti Batti, he writes a slight decoration of the aria on the repeat. So this is the tune. On the repeat, he writes, so what does this tell us? Number one, that the variations are discrete. That is, we can still appreciate the tune. It is not high-flying or fancy or turns the tune into something unrecognizable. Secondly, it is appropriate dramatically. She is saying to her husband, "Oh, beat me. I've been so terrible." Now, she does not say that in a literal sense. She says it teasingly, almost sensually. And these little variations sound like little sobs. Batti, batti, oh bel masetto. So it is musically discreet and dramatically appropriate. In that mood, for the tenor, Don Ottavio, in his aria Dalla sua pace, this is the melody. I suggested to the tenor the following very subtle decoration on the repeat. It's a noble aria, and this very simple decoration is in that spirit. By way of contrast, consider how Rossini decorated a simple tune. In his opera La Cenerentola, Cinderella, he writes a glorious aria, final aria for the character. Now, the tune is very, very simple. His decoration, however, is quite fancy. It's almost like lace filigree. So even though the tune was very simple, the variations are far less discreet than Mozart's. At the same time, Bellini was writing, and he writes a kind of embellishment a little closer to what Mozart wrote. Here is the aria, O quante volte, oh how many times, from the opera Capuletti and Montecchi, the Capulets and the Montagues. And it's Juliet's aria, and the first time we hear it, we hear just the melody. On the repeat, he does this. Now remember that this is still a melodic variation, not like all that filigree that we heard in the Rossini. It also conveys the mood of sadness and of dreaminess that the tune itself portrays and the text requires. Now, in that mood, a little earlier in the opera, there is a cabaletta, second part of a dual aria, that Romeo sings. He sings now Romeo is a Montague, and he sings it to the Capulets, and he says, "My sword is ready to slay you." And the tune is this. I suggest it's rather martial and rather straightforward. So in that mood, I suggested to the singer to do this. And continue in that mode. Now, in addition to appropriate and dramatically right, it's always nice for conductors to try to utilize the strengths of the individual singers they're working with. Just a slight aside, famous British actor was playing Shakespeare and was shocked and almost intimidated that right in the first row was Sir Winston Churchill, who knew the lines from memory and was mouthing them. So there are always people that know this. And when they hear something brand new and unexpected, it's thrilling for them. Remember that these were of an improvisational nature. So occasionally doing something different is a plus, not a minus. Finally, there are a few places where a cadenza or a decoration is really not too appropriate, just by the nature of how the music was structured. One case in point, there's a wonderful aria that begins the Barber of Seville. The aria is sung by the tenor. And there's lots of decoration, but at the very end, the aria does not have a grand ending with space for applause. It sort of dies out and goes right into the recitativo. So we have this. Fiorello. Okay. For a number of years, tenors sang a variation, not only that was, I thought, inappropriate, but it was basically a ripoff of the Caruso ending of Verdi's La Donna Immobile. And it went like this. There's really no place for applause. If he wanted something like that, he would have ended it probably. So I encouraged the tenors to do all their decorations, and I wrote some, including a high C like this, a little bit earlier in the opera, and to end it exactly as he wrote it. So a little food for thought. This is one aspect that very often people don't realize a conductor gets involved with, or at least should get involved with. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel and share it with those you think would enjoy it. Thank you very much.